r/legal advice. 13 Luffine 4077 says. Miller's leaving SIL to us and will. My Miller's in her early 50s. She has degenerative discs in her back as well as unchecked type 2 diabetes. She does not expect to live past 60. My SIL lives with them because she does not have the skills to live on her own. None of this is due to any kind of documented physical or mental limitations. Her IQ is well within normal range. She has ADD, that is her only condition. She is currently 20. Her parents enable her to never do anything she doesn't want to do, including taking medication or holding a job. She was never made to learn to do chores, drive, schoolwork, etc. Her parents did everything for her, so she didn't have to. As a result, she knows how to do nothing for herself. This and a myriad of other issues, violent tantrums, stealing money and credit card information from family, etc., has made her quite disliked by both of her siblings, most of all her brother, my fiance, and I. My Mill believes her daughter's enabled inability to care for herself means she will always need some kind of guardianship. As such, she is trying to tell us that guardianship of her daughter will fall to my fiance and I when my Mill dies. She has gone so far to say it is in her will that we will legally be required to take SIL in and provide her with care. There is no documentation that my SIL actually needs any kind of accommodation outside of the classroom. There is no guardianship paperwork for my in-laws. SIL has gotten in trouble because they are no longer legally able to apply for her Medicaid since she is of age. This leads me to believe we will not be legally obligated to take my SIL in regardless of what my Mill says. Am I correct? Is there any kind of paperwork that would change this? Redditosa1211 says. You are never obligated to take SIL in or to take guardianship of another person, regardless of their age, condition, or what someone else's will says. Obviously there are circumstances that play out that would leave many of us unwilling to just walk away. SIL could become homeless or could become a ward of the state and be placed in a way your spouse can't live with. Username Elephant says. And I believe there's no reason why money allocated in the will couldn't be contingent upon caring for SIL. I could be wrong. But if you'd rather turn down any money subject to that condition, that's fine. It clearly has to be something you can decline. Otherwise, wouldn't a bunch of people just like, well, their retired relatives or other dependents to Bill Gates or someone else with a ton of money? Redditosa1211 says. There's no reason why money allocated in the will couldn't be contingent upon caring for SIL. That's true, Aish. There's probably nothing wrong with a will that says to my son I leave X, so long as he is willing to provide care for his sister. But this situation reveals one of the differences between a will and a trust. A will is a moment in time. Rules applied in one moment, and if son cares for daughter long enough to clear probate, and then stops, the will is ill-equipped to account for that. A trust is the right vehicle to provide for daughter's care over time. Inspector 3280 says. You can't will people. That in no way would ever be legally binding. Even if it were possible, it's not. You are never legally obligated to accept what is left to you in a will. You can always disclaim it. Germany 1 Italy 0 says. I think there was some sort of civil war in the US a few years ago that ended the practice of willing people. Rural jurist says. If your mill wants to take steps to care for her daughter after her death, she should consider working with an estate planning attorney. The attorney can discuss different options. I'm thinking of specific trust options that could help maximize whatever estate your mill has, with a Knight Award qualifying your SIL for public assistance. This is very specific lawyering work that is not DIY territory. Good luck. r/legal advice. October Siren 14 says. Are we liable to replace our neighbor's refrigerator? Last week we had a bad hailstorm and the winds caused one of our trees to uproot and fall onto our fence, which took out our neighbor's power line and internet. They called the electric company to take care of their power line, and they got their internet company to take care of their internet. Our neighbors asked us to replace their fence. We told them we wouldn't be able to replace the whole fence, just the section affected, like maybe 6 feet. They also complained that their fridge broke and wanted it replaced. They mentioned that they have homeowner's insurance and asked for our info. We don't have homeowner's insurance. We told them we would take care of the tree and fence, and that would be it. We paid out of our pockets to get the fence fixed and the tree gone, so that is taken care of. My question is, are we liable to replace their refrigerator? I feel like that's not our responsibility, nor do we have the money to do so. Especially since this was an act of nature and not us purposefully knocking over the tree. Location, TX. Redditosa1211 says, we had a bad hailstorm and the winds caused one of our trees to uproot and fall onto our fence, which took out our neighbor's power line and internet. You're not liable for damages caused by a tree that fell as a result of a storm. Our neighbors asked us to replace their fence. You're not liable for this, and I'd probably not muddy the water by being nice. They also complained that their fridge broke and wanted it replaced. This is exactly why I wouldn't, perhaps unless it was a shared fence, a neighbor and I had a great relationship, talk about stuff I wasn't liable for. Bushi am not a doc says, do you really own a home and have no insurance? You should reconsider. This time it was 6 feet of fence, next time it could include a personal injury. If you are a tenant, the tree and fence were probably the owner's responsibility. Insurance won't help you after the fact, but please consider. 16-inch shelf says, provided you weren't negligent, tree was dying for example, no, you wouldn't be held liable. But get homeowner's insurance ASAP. No homeowner or renter should forego insurance. It would have helped you in this situation. Photochic1124 says, I'm not understanding what the refrigerator has to do with anything. Was it outside along the fence that got damaged? Nerdberg says, if you weren't negligent in some way, you knew the tree was unhealthy, then this is a classic act of God. Your neighbor should make a claim with their own insurance. Don't agree to give them anything else. Zethers says, can you clarify how the refrigerator was involved in all this? Did the tree hit the refrigerator? Or how was it damaged and why? Do the neighbors believe you are responsible? r/legal advice. Themedici says, XGF accused me of physical abuse and got me arrested. Released without charge. Now seeking legal justice. Hi there, in May last year me and my ex got into an argument about how she owes me thousands of pounds and was refusing to pay. We had split up, but were still living together, so money was due for rent, bills etc. She ended up calling the police and telling them I attacked her officially. This was the second time she had done this, calling police and making up false allegations of abuse against me. When they arrived, she showed them a tiny graze on her arm which she caused herself, and they arrested me for ABH, actual bodily harm. Thankfully I video recorded the entire argument and showed it to police, and it was clear I did not touch her or cause her any harm at all. However, during the time that I was in jail, my ex self-harmed and caused serious injuries to her forehead, giant lump, bruises and scratches all over her arm, cut marks all over her neck, and then sent photos to the police saying it was me who did it. Even though I was arrested and in jail when these injuries were caused, so it was literally impossible to have been me unless I escaped jail, did this to her, and then returned without anyone knowing. Again, the police knew I was innocent, because when they arrived at the scene my ex didn't have any signs of these injuries, except the tiny graze on her arm. Eventually the case was closed about 2 months later after investigation, and once I was informed that I would not be charged due to lack of evidence, I told police I wanted to press charges against my ex for trying to get an innocent person put in jail, trying to ruin my life, all because she was bitter that she owed me so much money and didn't want to pay. I wanted them to charge her for wasting police time / perverting the course of justice, but they said that it would be impossible to prove. How can I receive justice for this terrible act that my ex committed? Any advice would be really appreciated. Thanks. Sendelgarm says, the police were almost certainly right in that it would be impossible to prove, and even if it was possible you can't force them or the prosecutor to act if they don't want to. Your only legal option here would be civil action, and it would likely be impossible to prove there too, but at least you can try there without needing police / prosecutor approval. Themedici says, this is what they said. Can you try to explain why it's impossible? And also, it's surely enough evidence to prove without reasonable doubt that she interfered with an investigation by falsifying evidence, and so should be referred to the Crown Prosecution Service, no? Repeted Leconquest says, it's impossible to prove she harmed herself or knowingly lied to police. It's easily provable that it was not in fact you that harmed her, but she can continue to lie and claim she thought it was you, but it must have been someone else, etc. That's why it's impossible. Famous Specialist 44 says, if you are now no contact and she is out of your life, I'd let sleeping dogs lie. If you initiate legal proceedings over the owed money or the wrongful arrest, you will point restart contact and without much chance of a meaningful outcome. Time to let it go and move on. Cantankarausordus says, you say she owes you thousands of pounds. I think /r/legal advice UK may be a better sub for you to get help on this, as jurisdictions matter greatly. In the US, you could have a civil case against her. It may be a weak case without much chance of recovery, unless there was a loss of job or other actual monetary loss. However, I have no idea what would happen in the UK. In the US, for getting her arrested, she did file a false report, and that can lead to criminal charges. That can be brought by you via letter or email is usually best, directly to the district attorney, who can then order the arrest. They or the equivalent office make that decision, not you. As this is the second time it has happened, there may be enough will there to happen. UK processes and laws differ, so your mileage may vary. Also in the US, you can request a restraining order / order of protection that prohibits her from having contact with and or being physically near you. This gets dicey with the living arrangement, but it may force her to live elsewhere as well until it expires, and can be removed early or renewed based on filings. UK law is likely different. Lastly, you can pursue an eviction on grounds of safety. This would allow you to use her abuse of the legal system as abuse against you as reason to force her out. Again, not sure about the UK. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.